Hey everybody, welcome back to Building the Ozarks. I'm Wyatt McAfee, and this week I have the distinct pleasure of introducing you to Keith Mills with Mills Foundation. Keith, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. We genuinely do appreciate it. Keith, you and I have gotten to know each other a little bit through the HBA and just, conversations. We were both at the home show. I've really had just a wonderful time getting to know you, a little bit about your business. But for our audience, obviously, some of them might not be that familiar with you. So can you tell me a little bit about who you are, Mills Foundation, and obviously just the family impact that you guys have?
Yep. All right. So our wall business, so we do basement and stem walls for residential houses here in Springfield. And we actually turned 60 years old this year. So I'm third generation to be part of it. And it's one of those things that my dad's brother is the one that started the company back in 66. And then my dad, his brother, and his nephew took it over in the early 2000s.
Okay.
And so I've just kind of grown up in it. And it's one of those things that they've really built the reputation up over the years. And, me being just the personality I have, I want to take that reputation and build upon it.
Of course.
But I will say just the struggles I'm having right now, it's hard enough to keep up with the reputation they currently have. So
it's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
Well, and for our audience, so dealing with foundations, you guys are primarily involved with residential concrete work, essentially, right? And that's probably an oversimplification, but I want to make sure that I'm giving onus where onus is due.
Yeah, we just do residential.
Yep.
We don't do any commercial projects, and so it's basically basements, stem walls, and retaining walls.
Dealing with basements in Southwest Missouri is not my idea of a good time, so I'm grateful for people like you. So I'm from Minnesota originally, and the soil is, black sand. Yep. You can dig a 10-foot hole with a shovel in an afternoon.
Yeah.
Moved down here, and I remember being 10, 11 years old, and my dad was like, I need to go plant a tree or bury a fence post or whatnot, and 2 hours later, you've got an 8-inch hole, and you're like, hope that works, So, and it's something that comes up in conversations with clients pretty consistently is like, why aren't there more basements around here? And I'm like, have you tried digging in Missouri soil?
You dig, and we have just about every kind of soil composition that you can imagine around here, because we're actually part of a national organization for residential concrete contractors. Yeah. And it's funny just because talking to some of the other members there, because most of them are out on the East or West Coast.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they're like, I don't know how you do it in Missouri. Like, just the way the ground settles and that kind of thing. And again, you can dig right here and you're going to be full of clay. You can move 10 feet over and it's going to be nothing but rock.
I grew up on a dolomite glade is what they called it. So it's nothing but bedrock. Like you'd have 2 inches of dirt, a half an inch of grass on top and nothing but solid, just, I got very acquainted with the pickaxe.
Yeah.
So Keith, I've kind of chatted with you about the purpose behind the podcast, Building the Ozarks. We're trying to just be a resource and a connection point between many of the great businesses that I get to experience and work with on a day-to-day basis and our community, right?
Yeah.
For people who live in the information age, good information is becoming harder and harder to find, right?
100%.
Being a third generation, family owned company here in the Ozarks, obviously you've stood the test of time, which as anybody in small business knows, if you're lucky to make it 3 to 5 years, let alone 10, right? While that is first off an accolade and something that, as somebody who cares a lot about his family, it's very intrinsically important to me. And I'm hoping that I can help build something that if my children chose, they could be involved with. But I also know working with family comes with its own unique struggles. I've done the family business thing before. So in your own words, could you share with us, one kind of your motivation to be a part of the family business? Because not everybody makes that decision, but then also what that means to you. And, just I'm trying to kind of compartmentalize the value that I see in our conversations when we've talked about your business and show that to our audience.
Okay. All right. So where do I start here? So I guess it's something I've always been a part of. I mean, I've been carving my initials in footings as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. And it's one of those, I started laying footings and walls out with my uncle between 4th and 5th grade in the summers. And then continued that really just kind of the rest of my life.
Yep.
Kind of a thing. And it's just, it's again, going back to the kind of the family dynamic of it. It adds a whole another dimension to, again, the family dynamic.
Right.
Because again, you're mixing work with play, kind of a thing. And so it's, it adds to maybe some stronger conversations happening, but I think we're better for it because of it. You know, we're constantly communicating every day.
Yep.
And so it's one of those, I think we're a lot closer than most families are because of it.
Just exposure.
Yeah. And again, we work with each other every day. Like my sister does receivables. So does my cousin. My other cousin, Justin, is kind of taking over the schedule on the wall side. And so that's kind of where our generation is starting to kind of take some reins off of the older guys.
Have the olive or the torch passed, you know, a little bit. Well, and again, so I've done small business with family before, and I won't get off into the weeds as far as that goes, but I respect immensely what you're saying. It's not easy. Yeah. And it does, I think, take a particular type of family, you know, because obviously everyone's family dynamic is different. Yeah. But to me, the benefit has always been worth yes, it's easier to have hard conversations because you know these people love you, right? And they're going to have to love you tomorrow regardless of what happens today.
Exactly. It's one of those, I might not like you at this very point in time, but I still always love you.
Exactly.
And as long as we just take that into every conversation we have, the conversations may start off rough, but we're always smiling by the end of it.
Right.
Because we all have the same end goal in mind. It's just how we get there is kind of where we have our disagreements. But again, talk it out, work it out, and it has worked out for us so far.
Well, and I have to imagine the bedrock of trust of, you know, not that, you know, typical employees don't care about their company, right? Like I've been employed by multiple people, and I like to think that my integrity and my principles mattered to me. I always showed up trying to put my best foot forward. But when you just have that kind of intrinsic bedrock to the relationship that everyone is invested as much as they can be in seeing the company succeed, it does make some of the day-to-day grind a little bit easier, right? You can, you know, intrinsically where people's motivation is coming from. So being in the Ozarks, right? Because I'm sure you've probably heard it. This is we're not on the East or West Coast, right? This is a little bit quieter pace of life, a little bit more old school in some regards. Do you find that being a family-owned business is something that is recognized and valued around here still?
100%. Okay. Because again, a lot of the trends is right now currently is, you know, is American made kind of a thing. And so again, we've been around this area for about 4 generations at this point, because my grandpa on my dad's side helped pour concrete at the Table Rock Dam back in the day. And that's how come all of his sons went into concrete.
That's pretty cool.
The oldest one started the wall business, and then the 2 second oldest ones actually did flat work, and they traveled all around the country doing all the flat work for Whitewater back in the 70s and 80s. Kind of a thing.
It's kind of a lineage. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And it's one of those that one of them retired a couple years ago. But Merle's son-in-law and daughter is kind of taking it over at this point. So they're still doing flat work.
So you guys got the whole concrete empire basically under wraps in one way or another.
They're separate from us.
Fair.
I do want to be upfront with that, but they do follow us probably 60 to 70% of the time.
Yep. No, that's cool. So obviously, you know, I always like wordplay, right? And dealing with foundations. Your family is your foundation for your business. You guys are obviously dealing with literal foundations in your day-to-day world. I have found in my walk through real estate, and then also coming from the residential contractor world before that, you know, shop classes aren't something that happen too often anymore. There's not a lot of education that kind of goes into homes and how they're built, right? And it's kind of that old adage that high schools teach us algebra and calculus, but they don't teach us how to do our taxes, right?
Yeah.
And that is by no means a slight intended in any way towards the education system, but having dealt with just the unknowns, like I said, and you can go out to ChatGPT or whatever and find 5 answers for every question that you might have. And I very much value education in my role as a real estate agent. So when you guys are working with your customer base, what does that process look like? How do you educate them on the value of what you bring to their home? Because literally everything starts with a foundation. Like it's, if you mess that up, everything else is going to follow, right?
Yeah.
So can you kind of explain what your process is like as a company?
I can kind of start out with just the building process in general.
Yeah.
So typically, like if you're a contractor, it's, the first thing that actually gets built is the foundation itself.
Right.
But the thing is, before that happens, you need to contact a surveyor to come out and kind of pin the property lines and put kind of the outline of the house, stake it for dig. Excavator will follow them, come in, dig it out. And then we come in. That's kind of when we show up.
Yep.
But with that, we prefer if you'll get us contacted before you find an excavator, just so that we can meet them on site when they start digging. Because again, we know how our forms go together. We can tell you this is where your steps need to be in the footing. This is where the steps in the walls will be.
Yep.
And that kind of thing. And typically when we do that, it ends up saving the homeowner quite a bit of money in the long run, so that they don't dig it out wrong and have to bring the excavator back and make some changes.
Trades work hand in hand. Like give them the opportunity to do so, right?
Yep. And again, just kind of that's where the process starts. But as soon as our I guess staff member meets you on site, right now it's my uncle Kent, but he's getting his knee replaced tomorrow, so it'll probably be Greg in the short term while he's learning to walk again.
Yep, small detail.
But don't worry, Greg's been doing it since the early 90s when he got out of high school, so he has plenty of experience there.
He's just fine.
And so that's when they get done excavating, that's when we'll come in. We'll meet with either the builder or the homeowner, depending on who it is, just to make sure we've got your drainage pipe where it needs to go, all the your plumbing in and out, that kind of thing. So he meets you out on site, discusses all that. He'll paint up the hole, mark it up, lay it out for construction.
Yep.
And then typically our crew comes in an hour or so about after him, forms it up, pours it, show up tomorrow, strip it, and
away you go.
Start laying out the walls.
Yeah.
And by that, typically we don't meet you for the wall section because we've covered all in the footing.
Right.
But again, if something changes, we have very open communication. We almost call you too much. It's just not a bad problem to have in our industry.
Right.
Because we want to make sure we get what you need done.
Yeah.
It's one of those, we will advise you on where to save money, but ultimately we're going to do whatever you tell us to do.
Yep.
And so that's...
No, and I'm glad you touched on the communication thing. I remember, and I couldn't tell you who it was, but my parents had a shop built when I was, I want to say 13, 14 years old, right? Mm-hmm. And it was weeks of back and forth on when are you guys going to be out here? And then it's like, okay, they said they were going to be out here in 2 days. And then they showed up this afternoon and they were here for 45 minutes and then they left, right? And a big part of why I started this podcast was, I hesitate to say the word, but almost endorsement, right? Like I know you, Keith. We go to activities together. We were at that thing for the Courtney last week, right? Like we see each other on a regular basis, and that's how I like to do business, right?
Yeah.
I tell people I'm pretty old school when it comes to business, and if I need to, I can show up at your office, right? Because that's the same service I'm offering to my clientele, right? But just facing the brutal reality of what I'm going to call it our industry, the whole home industry in general, from pouring the foundation to getting it sold, right? We are unfortunately dealing with some negative connotations that, just have arisen over, the span of time.
Yeah.
And like with everything in life, not every foundation company is created equal, right? And that's, to me, such an important value that we can bring to our community is there are really good companies here in Springfield. Most of the time, people just don't know how to find them, right? And I dealt with that, especially whenever I was working in the residential contracting world, dealing with trying to find subs for jobs. And it's like, okay, some subs, I remember one time there was like, I was supposed to meet this sub out at a job site on 3 separate occasions. Never ended up happening. And every time it was like, I would be at the house waiting for him and he would cancel, right?
Yeah, that's no way to do business.
No, and for us, it's like, it is just business, right? But then something that I always keep in mind is like, no, we're dealing with people's homes. And I intrinsically believe in homes because, like I said, family is important to me, right?
Yeah.
Like my family is safe at home. It's where all your things are kept, right? Like it's where all of the memories happen. We want to protect that and we want to prioritize that for our community. But most people don't have the time to sift through all of the contractors that are out there. They don't have the relationships built up to know these people. And so that's just kind of going back to the overarching theme of the podcast. And like I said, for the fact that you guys have been in business for 60 years, like that is a standing stone to the fact that you guys care about doing business the right way.
Yeah, we value ourselves on our service and our quality product at the end. It's one of those that like, one of those things that we're just, we are the area expert, in my opinion. We do have some competitors that I will say they do a heck of a job, but it's not as good as us. And it's just,
it's okay to set the bar, right?
Yeah. And again, that goes back to the founder of the company, my Uncle Jim. Like that was his biggest thing is he wanted to run as an efficient of an outfit as possible. We show up when we tell you we're going to be there, and we strip our walls when we tell you tell you it's going to be done. And it's one of those, if there's any hiccups in and out of that process, like again, you gave us a square box and then it turned into a real big custom monster, there will be a price change. And it's one of those things that we try to figure that out as it's happening and let you know ahead of time. So instead of just sending you a bill at the end for X amount, and when that was not in the budget originally. But I will say when getting estimates from us in particular, be thorough. Don't be scared to put too much in there because we're always going to try to overdo it because it's one of those we want to come in under.
Yeah, you want to be conservative.
And we want all the information as possible. So don't just try to get a cheap bid and then change the house after you get the cheap bid. Just be upfront with the homeowners and that kind of thing. And again, just going back to the communication, be upfront with it. We're going to be upfront with you as much as we possibly can. I mean, again, we're human, mistakes happen.
Of course.
But again, when we make a mistake, we're going to come back and fix it. We're going to own it. That kind of thing.
Which is, I think, all our community wants is people who stand behind their work, right? And I've seen mistakes happen. It's not, again, like you said, we're all human beings. Everybody has an off day. Things will inevitably come up. If your business plan revolves around you batting 100% of the time, you're probably going to be disappointed pretty quickly, right? But I don't think the general public understands how hard it is to change the course of the ship once it starts, right?
Yeah. Especially that's why we're up front and meet you before we ever lay the footing out. Because again, once that concrete's poured, there's no changing it unless you want to break it down and rip it out.
And I can't even imagine what that conversation would look like.
And again, and that's why we're up front going, all right, this is revision 9. Do you have revision 9 right now? Because it could be 10 or it could be 16.
Right. Which one are we looking at?
And we want to know before our crew shows up to form it.
Right. You're pulling the trigger on this, and it is what it is at that point.
And so again, just be up front, and we'll be up front with you. And again, just open line of communication.
It goes back to what we were talking about before the cameras started rolling. I feel like everybody's trying to almost reinvent the wheel these days, right? When it comes to business. And don't get me wrong, I understand why. We're inundated with the external pouring into our industries, advances in AI, the softwares that we're using, how hard it is to market correctly with keeping up with things like social media, right? Like there's a lot of just new that's always kind of landing in our laps as business owners. And we're not dictating those conversations. They're happening to us, right? But the more I am involved in it, and I've seen this with getting involved with the HBA, I've seen it with, other portions of business and community that I'm involved with here in Springfield. In the midst of all that chaos of all the new and trying to keep up with it, it's almost like people are turning back to the simplified business practices that have kept us on the straight and narrow for a very long time. And my industry is notorious for it. I mentioned to you this, like, there's this thought process that real estate isn't normal business, right? And there are some really unique business models out there in real estate that I would agree are not your typical business model. That being said, simple things like communication, delivering the product that was promised on a timeline that was promised, right? And showing up at the end of the day, giving the client the invoice, and it looks like what they're expecting it to look like. If you can knock those three things out of the park consistently, 90% of your jobs are going to go just fine, right? And,
100%.
And sometimes there are things that come up. We're talking about the soil content of Missouri. It's like the house I grew up in, the kitchen was supposed to be, because we ended up talking to the builder, even though he had built it 10 years before my parents ever bought it. But the kitchen always seemed odd. Well, it's because when they went to pour the basement, they ran into a giant, I forget what type of rock. And it was like, okay, we can either spend X amount of dollars busting this up or blow it up. And neither one of those things was in the budget. And so the kitchen just changed, right? And it worked out. It was fine. But like, those are the sorts of things that, yes, like people who are involved with custom builds are going to have more of those conversations along the way. But if it's a spec home, or where you're kind of in the middle between spec and custom, you don't see those conversations a lot of times, right? And it is hard because we're trying to do things for the right reasons and making sure that the customer understands that, right? And sometimes things just aren't in your control. Topography is not something that we didn't pick where the rocks are, right? Missouri just breeds them, unfortunately, is the way I've been told. So we've kind of covered who you are. We've kind of covered, your business model. Obviously, for anybody who's out there looking to have some pours done, the best way to be, or the best way to proceed would be to get in touch with you guys directly, just because we can't cover all of the nuts and bolts when it comes to this. But that being said, just as far as a businessman in the Springfield area, one of the things that I kind of wanted to touch on is I'm seeing kind of the torch passing happen, right? And I don't have a 60-year-old family-owned company to witness it firsthand, but I do feel like there are opportunities being born right now in our industry where those things are starting to happen, right? And it's not all going to happen at the same time. Generations aren't clear-cut, but do you see, and this is just kind of a third-party curiosity of mine, do you see those opportunities? And kind of the way I look at it is the next 5 to 10 years in business in Springfield could be very formative for a lot of people's careers, right?
Yes.
Do you see what I'm picking up on?
100%. I don't know if I can put it into words, kind of like you right now. But yeah, it's a very real thing in this industry. And I think there's a lot of people, like kind of in my instance, it's the younger generation wanting to kind of take the reins and go for it. And it's, I guess my generation just seems pretty motivated to start doing it now at this point. We're adults. It's time to start wearing the hats and talking the talk and walking the walk. And so it's, I guess, how do I put it? There's an awful lot of opportunity here. And just being able to capitalize on it. It's probably the hardest part for someone kind of in my shoes, because there's so much new technology out there to help you. There's different ERP systems, there's different time tracking, that kind of thing. How do you choose which one to go with?
Right.
That's probably been my biggest problem, is just evaluating, all right, this technology does this and this, but this other one does this, this, and this.
Right. But there's not one that necessarily does both that's comparable price-wise, or...
It's one of those, typically you're a jack of all trades and you're a master of none.
Yep.
And it's one of those, that's why we stuck to vertical wall constructions. We wanted to be a master of one.
Yep.
And that's why we stayed away from flat work. But again, if you need a flat worker, give me a call. I'll give you a good recommendation. We've been following people for 60 years now.
You're just...
so I can give me a good scope of work, what you're needing, and I can give you a good recommendation.
And, it's, to me... The place that Springfield is at, Springfield in the surrounding area, right? When I say that, I definitely mean the greater area. Everybody who lives here basically says it in some form or fashion or another. We were a big town, now we're a small city, right? And to me, the pace of this snowball has picked up to the point where it's not going to stop, right? And that growth rate is part of what's precipitating these opportunities, right? So knowing the opportunities or at least we agree that the opportunities are there.
Yeah.
What would you say to other individuals who are our age who might be looking at trying to do this?
Reach out. It's one of those, if I haven't seen it, I bet I've come across someone who has.
Yep.
And again, it just kind of our millennial generation in general really focuses on the collaboration side of everything. Because it's one of those, I may be doing this right, but you may be doing that other thing right that I'm not doing. And so if we can get together and figure out kind of that middle ground, we're both winners.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of us are kind of in that question phase of, what do I do here?
Right.
Because, the older generation did it this way, but if you want to scale up or anything like that, you can't keep doing it that way.
Changes are forced upon us, right? What got you here won't get you there, is the saying I use.
Don't do big, giant, oversweeping changes like I'm just going to throw that whole old system out the window. No, do a little tweak here, do a little tweak there. Build it to survive in this day and age,
right?
Kind of a thing. And so that's kind of where I'm at currently. And again, if anyone out there is around my age and going through the same thing, please reach out, because I'd love to talk to you.
And that's even that, I've had multiple conversations this week that chime in exactly with what you're saying. You would expect that whether it be you're in the same industry, so i.e. your competitors, or right, I'm a business owner, so I'm going to protect my book of business and I'm, not out here to help the little guy. My experience has been 180 degrees from that. It's almost more of when you're getting into the industry, the other players recognize the hustle, they recognize the drive, they know how challenging it can be, because being a small business owner is not the thing for everybody, right? And that's okay. But it has been something that I've touched on a couple of times on past episodes, just how incredible it is to see the business owners and the titans of industry in our subset of our community, and how generous they are, right? Whether it's you talking to a young person who's wanting to step out and do their own thing, or even getting involved with the HVA. I've walked up to people who own very successful businesses, and I didn't have to pander to get their attention. I didn't have to go in there and be worth, X amount of money to be able to get coffee with them. They're just human beings. And that is I just wish I could go back to Wyatt in my career 5 years ago and be like, look, just do this. Don't worry about it.
Shake those hands, say hello, because they're not going to turn you away. That's the beauty of Southwest Missouri. We're all a bunch of good old boys. Yep. And again, we may be a bigger city now, but we're still just a small town. Right. Everybody knows everybody.
We've not lost that mentality.
Yeah. And again, brush shoulders with the right people, and it's one of those that they may not know who you need to talk to, but they know someone who does. Right. And again, just making those connections, networking, that kind of thing. It's just don't be scared to do it. Sometimes you got to jump in the pool, both feet in the deep end.
And like I said, they just respect it, right? I was on the phone with a new young entrepreneur last night. He's trying to get a cleaning business off of the ground. I told him, it's like, I'll do anything I can to help you because I've been there, right? Not with a cleaning business, but like I know what it's like to be that guy who wants to get out and do something hard, and it's not easy, and you're taking responsibility for that.
Yeah.
And I'm where I'm at in my career. Yes, I've worked really hard at it, but mostly I'm where I'm at because of good mentors and other people in my life who have poured into my business, given me advice, right? Who have helped me kind of step through the ranks and get to where I'm at now. So that's why I think that, like I said, just kind of rounding off this portion of the conversation, it's encouraging to hear as a young professional that you're kind of seeing the same things. I'm trying to be so conscientious of what the next 5 to 10 years look like in Springfield. Because I do think it's going back to family. Everything I do revolves around taking care of my family, right? It is not hard to make Wyatt happy, but I want to provide well for my family, right? I want to take care of them. And I see just the net positive for our families, for the next generation to be drastically impacted if we're intentional on the decisions that we're making in business. So that kind of wraps up the time slot that I initially had. Did you have anything further that you wanted to kind of touch base on today, Keith?
Nothing. I would like to talk a little bit about just our culture because it's been a big focus on us over the last 5 years
Absolutely.
or so. Because again, my uncle started it back in the 60s, and it was just do it as fast and quick and as best as possible.
Yep.
It's one of those, we kind of evolved in the early 2000s when my dad and uncles kind of took over, and they were able to take what Jim had built and built the customer base and do a lot more jobs that way. And again, but yet we didn't relinquish any of our quality when we did that. And so that was a big deal to us then. And now with our current crews, we've really been focusing on the culture and changing it, because again, growing up, we work 6 days a week, sun up to sundown. And we're trying to kind of phase that out a little bit. It's one of those, I mean, if the jobs are there, we're going to work 6 days a week.
But sometimes you got to do.
We do want to give our employees time with their families and that kind of thing. You know, you shouldn't have to miss a basketball game because you're laying forms. Like, they only have so many. You get 18 summers with them.
Yep.
Make the best of those 18 summers.
One of the best pieces of advice I was given before my oldest was born is you get 18 years with your kids, and then you got to give them back, right? Because they are their own people, and they're going to live their own lives. And I thank you for bringing culture up, because that's even something that we've tried to be really intentional about with our team is having a dedicated day to where our families can rely on us to be there, right? Because real estate is one of those, you know, you only get paid when you sell stuff. So when there's a sales opportunity lands in your lap, it's really easy to get focused on that, push for other responsibilities to the side and it's easy to justify because you're taking care of your family, right? Yeah. But more often than not, the best way to take care of your family is to actually be there, right? And I'm having spent plenty of time in the trades, I'm encouraged to hear you say that, because I do think it is one of the, obviously there's an outside perception looking in to our industry, but then there's also the perception that we see amongst ourselves, right? Yeah. And that sacrificing moments that you'll never get back. Yeah. For, like you said, pouring concrete. For me, it's like, okay, yes, I got to go show a house, right? But managing that appropriately and setting my business parameters and being, what really boils down to is the ability to go, I'm going to be okay if I don't work right now. So many entrepreneurs never find that balance in their life.
I have a horrible time with it myself.
Yeah.
It's also a glaring red flag of mine, and I know it's a red flag, so it makes me focus on it more than I used to. Right. But it's still very hard to turn off.
Well, and altruistically, it's not that you're doing it inherently for bad reasons, because I can work a lot, right? And it's, I love what I do. I love getting to take care of my clients. That matters to me intrinsically, right? It's part of the reason why I would venture to say that I'm good at my job, right? And so it's born from a desire to serve the people that we're working for, right?
Yep.
But too much of anything can be a bad thing, right? And finding out, I remember very early on in my real estate career, it'd be like, you get so caught up in chasing deals and making business happen and trying to find opportunities. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I haven't, spent more than 15 minutes at home in the last 3 days where everybody was actually awake at the same time,
Yeah.
And there are times in any season, in any business where, you might have to cut pretty close to the bone on managing your responsibilities. And it just is what it is. That's part of what we sign up for as small business owners, right? Yeah. But if you're intentional about it, and the fact that you brought up culture as such an important thing, like that tells me from the top down, it's happening, right?
Yeah. And again, it's one of those things that we didn't think was that important back in the day.
Yeah.
But we started losing employees and that kind of thing. And it's one of those that we didn't want to keep that turnover
propagating
up.
That.
Again, most of those guys have been with us as long as I can remember. They've watched me grow up.
Right.
And so, and again, and going back to just the family side, like I look at our employees like they're my brothers and cousins.
Yeah.
Like, cause I've known them my whole life.
Yep.
And it's something that I think I may take for granted just cause I'm used to it at this point, but I didn't realize how special that was until I went out and worked on my own for a little bit. Cause I went through architecture school and worked at a firm here in town for a couple of years before I went back to the family business in July of 24.
Which we got to pick your brain sometime about that. Cause I love talking architecture with people, but
it was one of those things like I was working about 80 hours a week for my dad right out of school the first time where I was a triple business major. And we got to talking. It's like, if you enjoy what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I'd always wanted to be an architect. I just didn't think I could draw. And so I went through architecture school, worked at a firm for a couple of years. And then I've always ran payroll and payables on the weekends for my dad, even through architecture school.
Yep.
But I was tired of working 7 days a week and just had to, again, reprioritize my time.
Right.
And I found that my time was probably better utilized working for the family business. And it was a good decision. I'm glad I made it.
Yep.
It's nice having just the one thing to focus on instead of trying to learn a whole new industry of itself. But it's one of those that like, I wouldn't take any of that back for the world. Like it's made me who I am today. And again, I loved every second of that architecture.
Well, and to me, this is like, it goes back to just living for more than your job, right? Like it's good to have things that you're passionate about, even if it doesn't make you money. Yeah. For me, it's the outdoors. Like I call it tree stand therapy, right? If I have a day, for some reason in Southwest Missouri, if I tell people I'm going hunting, it's like socially acceptable for them to say, oh, we won't bother you. Right. Oh. Which in real estate, my phone goes off all the time. And so, having 2 or 3 days a year where it's like, I'll just go sit in a tree stand. I don't even have to do anything.
Oh, I don't even bring a gun. I just go sit.
Yeah. I'm just time in the woods. I enjoy nature, the fresh air, like just getting away from that busyness. But it goes back to the culture side of things, right? Like my industry has allowed the expectation to be real estate agents are working 24/7. I got a phone or a text message from a client last night at 1:37 in the morning. I was not awake. I did not answer that text message just to set the record clear, right?
Wake up to a text from him complaining about how you hadn't answered?
No,
right.
Thankfully.
Well, at least that's good.
And I do tell my clients, I'm like, look, if you are awake in the middle of the night and you have a thought, go ahead and shoot the text. So that way, when my feet hit the ground in the morning, I know, okay, I got to add this into my marching orders and get things done. So it's within the realm of the structure that I try to bring to my business and my relationship with my clients.
Okay.
But it gets, if you're not intentional about it, you lose your needle on your compass pretty quickly, and all of a sudden you are responding late at night, right?
Yeah, again, you have to have the discipline yourself to set those parameters.
Yeah, well, and like I said,
and uphold them. You can set them, but it's upholding them. That's the hard part.
In trusting that it's going to be okay, right? Like that's where I think for a lot of the young people, my focus of conversation is just that. I've been in real estate for 5 years. There are a lot of times in the first 2 years where I didn't know if it was going to be okay, right? And it was. And almost every person that I know who's in small business has faced those moments where you're like, are we going to figure this out? And most of the time it doesn't look like you think it's going to, but you do figure it out and it is okay.
It's typically easier than you were expecting it to be.
And all that worry and heartache that you poured into hard decisions or hard conversations usually amounts to a whole lot of, well, that was rather anticlimactic, right? But it's part of the growing pains and part of the process that you go through as a business owner. So, thank you for bringing culture up. I feel like that was definitely probably a keystone moment as far as this conversation goes. So Keith, you and I are going to go away from this podcast, obviously continue doing business here in the Springfield area. What would be the best way for somebody who is watching this or maybe, tuning in 2 years from now to get a hold of your business?
Again, probably going to our website, millsfoundations.com. Okay. Again, there's an S at the end of foundations. It is plural. A lot of people miss that. Okay. And just kind of poke around. That way, that'll have our phone number and just some basic emails to contact the office. I've got access to all of our company emails, so you will be getting me. But if you want me directly, send me an email. It's keith@millsfoundations.com. It's pretty simple.
Perfect.
Again, just don't forget the S after foundations.
Yep.
But again, just shoot me an email or give me a phone call. It's whatever. It's all there on our website. And
perfectly normal people, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Building the Ozarks. Again, I'm Wyatt McAfee. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Take care.